Alrighty, thank you guys all for coming. We would like to introduce Tim Shaw and Alaina. They're both going to be playing a piece for us. So please welcome Tim and Alaina.
Hello, everyone. Second time's the charm. As our host said, I am Technical Sergeant Alaina Shaw, and this is Master Sergeant retired Tim Shaw. He'll be speaking in a few minutes. We both have experience in the Air Force bands, so that's what we're here to talk about today and share with you about. I am still active duty. I'm a full-time musician for the Air Force, and I'm stationed at Scott Air Force Base, just on the Illinois side of the Mississippi River. And my band's name out there is called the Air Force Band of Mid-America. So we travel all along up and down the Midwest of the United States and do our best to visit a 10-state area. We go all the way up to Minnesota and Wisconsin, and as far south as Arkansas, and over to the east a little bit into Tennessee. And that is our area of responsibility, is the Midwest. So we're the Band of Mid-America. And just to give you a little background on how I got started, excuse me. I studied music from a very young age. I started on piano at 6 years old, and then picked up the clarinet in 6th grade. And decided pretty early on that I wanted to do music for my job someday. And luckily I was able to attend the Eastman School of Music, where I got a bachelor's degree in clarinet performance, of all things. And then after that I worked for 3 years in arts administration at the Baltimore Symphony on staff there, and then the Peabody Conservatory, also in Baltimore. The Peabody Conservatory has an exchange program with a music conservatory in Singapore. And so I worked with the students and professors going back and forth between the two schools. But that was not ultimately what I wanted to do. I wasn't playing my clarinet for any of that. So I went back to school and got a master's degree in music at the University of Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C. And if you didn't know, the DoD is actually, the Department of Defense is currently the largest employer of musicians in the United States, with all of the military bands that are out there. So there are, of course, several in the Washington, D.C. area, and I was going to college right there, so I thought, hey, this is the perfect place to join a military band. And that is not what happened. About 3/4 of the way through my master's degree, I auditioned for the Air Force Band of the Golden West out in California, on the complete other side of the country. And I had been auditioning for lots of different ensembles, also orchestras and things like that. And the Air Force Band was the first ensemble that offered me a job. So thankfully I said yes. I'm very grateful that I did. And finished my master's degree, graduated, had my graduation ceremony. The very next day I shipped for basic training. And had quite a bit of whiplash, because going for most of my life so far, being a musician, being an artist, and that sort of training, there's certainly a lot of discipline involved in that, to practice for several hours a day on my own, and being present and listening for rehearsals and performances. Certainly a lot of discipline there, but it's night and day from the military. And because of my graduation date from school, I was down in San Antonio, Texas, at Lackland Air Force Base for basic training in June and July, in the middle of summer. So that was a huge change for me, and basic training was not only a challenge because of those two different worlds, the music world and the military world, but having had some real world experience going to college and working for a few years, basic training is designed for 18-year-olds who have never left home before and need to be taught what it's like to be an adult and be in the military. So I had a little bit more experience than some of my military training instructors at basic training, but they were in charge over me, and they certainly showed it by yelling at me and everyone else several times a day. So that was certainly a challenge, and musicians are, of course, known for our physical fitness, right? So that's kind of an interesting way that we all have to adapt when we join the military and go through basic training. So just being there in Lackland, San Antonio, Texas, in the middle of summer, whenever I meet someone who is thinking about joining the Air Force bands or has been offered a job, but they're saying, oh, I don't know about basic training, I always tell them, hey, if I can do it, you can do it too. I'm sure you can. So went through basic training. The bands are it's the only career field in the Air Force, as far as I know, that does not require a tech school in the Air Force. And the tech school is, if you don't know, when you find out what your job is going to be in the Air Force. Let's say you're going to be a medic. You'll go to school for sometimes up to 2 years to learn how to do your job. Linguists also have a very long tech school. That's a couple of years to learn whatever language you're going to be specializing in. But in the band, we join the Air Force already knowing how to play our instruments. So it's a win-win for the Air Force and for the member, because we don't have to go to tech school. We can just start right away in the job, and the Air Force doesn't have to pay for our training. For a lot of musicians in the bands, it's certainly not a requirement. All that's required is a high school diploma, but in order to be competitive enough to qualify to be in the Air Force bands, we need a lot of training, a lot of advanced degrees to be good enough to be offered a job. So the Air Force got a really good deal from me. They were several $1,000s out that I took care of before I joined. So that was a benefit to me, but also a benefit to the Air Force. And a lot of people ask Air Force musicians, well, you have a master's degree, why wouldn't you become an officer? And that's a great question. The answer is because the officers in the band are the conductors. They do this. And they lead the entire organization. So they deal with the discipline and the paperwork and the administration of the organization. So they are musicians first and foremost as well, but they just happen to have the skill of conducting, and that's not a skill that I have. So I went the enlisted route along with all of the other musicians who play an instrument in the Air Force band. So to pick up my story, I went from basic training to the Band of the Golden West in the San Francisco Bay Area in California. And I met who would become my husband out there. He had just come back from being stationed in Germany with the Air Force bands. And we met and became friends and eventually got married. But out in California, it's a beautiful place. Got to see a lot of wonderful areas because the touring area that we are responsible for out there is all along the West Coast. So I had never been to Arizona before, went to Arizona and Idaho while I was out there for the first time, and some of the most memorable performances out there for me were performing at the Hollywood Bowl for the 4th of July. Did that almost every year I was out there. We were invited to play with the LA Philharmonic or the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra. I think they rotated every year. And whoever happened to be the guest artist for the 4th of July concerts. So I was lucky enough to perform with Chicago one year, and the Steve Martin and the Steep Canyon Rangers. And if you didn't know, Steve Martin plays the banjo. And that was my first time playing at the Hollywood Bowl. And a few other very famous people. My favorite time performing at the Hollywood Bowl was with Nile Rodgers, who you might not, I see some heads nodding. If you don't know that name, he created the band Chic, and he's written all kinds of popular tunes for, I should have brushed up on this before I started speaking, but he has written for Diana Ross and I think Justin Timberlake, a more modern person, but a lot of disco era tunes that I'm sure you would recognize. And funny enough, we were having our rehearsal, and I walked off stage, and none other than Nile Rodgers came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm a clarinet player too." He saw me carrying my clarinet. It turns out he started out on the clarinet and then eventually switched to electric guitar. So we got our picture taken together, and it was just a really, really neat moment to meet him and to perform with him later that day. And so the reason that the Air Force hires musicians like us is we are part of public affairs for the Air Force. So our real job is not really to be musicians. Our real job is to go out and do outreach, and especially in communities that don't see the uniform very often, or maybe they've never seen an American military member in uniform. Our job is to interact with those people, and we do use music as a step in the door. It's a lot more interesting to listen to a concert than to listen to a general talk about Air Force things for an hour. So we do our best to work on the relationships between the U.S. people, citizens, and we have a really important mission overseas that Tim will talk about in a few minutes. So when I was performing at the Hollywood Bowl, it was something like 20,000 people there every night for the performances, and really amazing to, they would have us all stand in our uniforms, and we'd receive just thunderous applause from the people there. But that applause wasn't really for us, not really for the bandsmen, because we represent everyone in the U.S. Air Force and really everyone in the U.S. military. And they were just showing their appreciation for that. So we're kind of the liaison in between the American people, in between other countries and the U.S. military and the military itself. So that, in a nutshell, is our job. Sergeant Shaw, the other Sergeant Shaw, we'll talk more about that in a few minutes, but that's my perspective. I have been in the Air Force for 12 years, so I've still got at least 8 years to go before I'm eligible to retire. So I'm enjoying my time at Scott Air Force Base, still going out and performing whenever I can with the band out there. But my husband is lucky enough to be living his best life retired. So he makes me jealous every day. But we both brought our instruments today. I'm going to perform a solo for you just on the clarinet. It's called Rhapsody, and it's by Wilson Osborne. This piece was originally written for the bassoon, though. But we clarinetists are sneaky people, and we stole it from the bassoon and kept it for ourselves. So it was adapted a little bit so that it works on the clarinet too. I don't think there are any bassoonists in the room today, so I can say that confidently that it sounds better on clarinet anyway. So I hope you enjoy Wilson Osborne's Rhapsody.
questions anytime.
Test. There we go. Hi, I'm Tim, formerly Master Sergeant Tim Shaw. Yeah, did anyone have any questions before we move on? None? That's okay. Oh, wait, we got one.
How long have you been at Scott?
It'll be 3 years in October, November.
Okay, did you come there from California or?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's right, we moved here together 3 years ago. Gosh, just in coming October?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 years ago. So more questions.
Do they rotate you, will you be leaving Scott, do you think, as a normal rotation in the Air Force?
I don't know. Is the answer.
What is the usual?
So the Air Force does have a few bands overseas. There's one in Germany, there's one in Japan, and it's part of the U.S., but we consider overseas. There's one in Hawaii. As a clarinet player, I'm only eligible to go to Germany, which is not a bad thing. But we are such a small career field that the Air Force doesn't spend money to move people around in the band unless it's to send us overseas. And the manning for the overseas bands takes priority. So if there is someone coming back from Germany who plays the clarinet and is my same rank, then there is in possibility a spot open for me. So if that happened and the stars aligned, we could potentially go over there. Not really sure if or when that will happen, but that's kind of the only way that I would get stationed somewhere else, is if I went to Germany first. Yes,
So
ma'am.
how did you get from California to Scott?
So there is a program that doesn't happen anymore called Base of Preference for career airmen, which I had been in for 9 years or so. So I was a career airman, not a first-term airman. I was on my third enlistment at the time, I think. So you can, for one time in your Air Force career, request to go to a different base. And since we were both in the band, when the other Sergeant Shaw was still active duty, that made it tricky for us to go anywhere other than California because they had to match 2 instruments and 2 ranks. But now that he retired, it was just 1. So we were ready for a change of scenery. I did my one-time base of preference request, and the Air Force actually honored that. So I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. I didn't mention that. We just feel more at home being out here. So yeah, glad to be here.
Thank you.
Can I talk now? It's just like being at home. Well, yeah, I know. I talk way too much. If you have any questions throughout, just yell at me, wave a hand or whatever. I do best when I don't know what's coming at me and I just... See, it's coming already. Yes, sir.
Who's your helper?
Who? Oh, my goodness. This is our little girl. You want to say her name? She says no. Nora is her name, and she... How old are you again? You're 14. Okay, she's 4 years old. She turned 4 a couple weeks ago. All right, so, gosh, where did we leave off? So I'm going to wing it a little bit today because I came thinking I was going to talk about one thing and then kind of realized we're going to switch gears for another reason because I'll probably be back in a couple months to talk more about the military stuff to the veterans.
Yeah.
But I'll give you an overview of my military career. Started about 10 years before hers, so we're going to take a time machine back to 2002 when most of you were graduating high school. Like she said, I retired as a master sergeant, but back then I was just a lowly little airman. Same deal, I went to school for music. I went to the University of Southern Mississippi, where I learned how to play this crazy instrument.
Yeah.
And then I did my graduate work up at the University of Iowa. Had a lot of fun doing that, but needed, for a lot of reasons, really needed health insurance, really bad. And I was looking at all sorts of jobs. Thank you. What is this? Oh, I don't have time to open it now. Maybe later. Sorry. So, you got it? So I was looking at lots of different jobs. I was even looking at being a bus driver at that point. But the military opened up. There was a job opening for me, barely. I actually called a place near where I lived. So I wanted to join the Air Force, and I saw that there was a band in Warner Robins, Georgia. I'm from Birmingham. So I called them up and I said, hey, do you have any openings? I would like to audition. And they said, I'm sorry, we just filled the opening. He's gonna go to basic training in 2 weeks, so we don't have anything available for you. I said, okay, thank you, I'll keep looking. 4 hours later, I got a phone call from the same guy, and he's kind of sheepish. He was like, that guy just called and said he's not going to go to basic training. And they said, can we come to you and audition you? So normally I would have to pay for the plane ticket and fly down to him, and I was just a grad student, barely making it, and I was like, yes,
Yeah.
you pay for the flight to come up to hear me. And so they heard me, and they were desperate enough to take me. So I went off to Warner Robins, Georgia, to the band of the United States Air Force Reserve, which was an active duty position, but we worked for the reserve. It was a strange thing, but there I got a really unique opportunity. Does anybody like bagpipe music?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, bagpipe music. Man, when I feel it, so I have some Scottish heritage, and I think it's just in my blood. When I hear like a big Highland bagpipe go, I just want to fight somebody. I don't know what it is that goes on. I just get inspired to do something crazy. But anyway, they had at the time the only active duty pipe band at this particular group. And they said, hey, you're going to play drums in this pipe band. I don't know if you know anything about drumming, but drumming in a pipe band is unlike anything that a normal percussionist like me has ever studied. It's a completely different technique. The way they read the music is different. It looks like the same instrument, but it is not. So I was like, okay, let's do this. And a week later, I was off performing with them, having just been thrown into this thing. So it was loads of fun. That band, every year we got called into to the state capital, the nation's capital, by the secretary, the Speaker of the House, for St. Patrick's Day. They would bring the Prime Minister of Ireland over. The President and the Prime Minister of Ireland would walk up the steps in front of us while we were bagpiping away. And it was a lot of fun. So I got to play for George W. and Obama. Played for both of them several times going up and down the stairs there. And Nancy Pelosi was she was in office the entire time. And so she was always there walking past too. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of security involved there. Some other really cool things we did the holiday notes from home. So we would go to Nashville and we would do this giant video recording that got played for troops all over the world who have access to TV. So deployed in Europe, in all these places overseas that haven't been home in years. And it would be just a bunch of Christmas music, a bunch of holiday music that they could enjoy. And we always had guest artists. So got some famous country people, some Sandy Patty, if you like the old Christian music. We recorded with her. We recorded with Vince Gill, some of the more famous recent people. Loads of fun doing that. The problem was we would record that in about, August. So a month, in July, I would get my Christmas music, and we would work on it, and then record it all August, so I have all these tunes stuck in my head, and then they're stuck in my head for a couple of months, and then October hits, and everybody starts playing their Christmas music, so year-round, for about 7 years, I had Christmas music just running through my head, and it was just, I'm glad I'm not in that anymore, but that was a lot of fun to go up and perform that. We did some other really cool things. So if you're into aviation and aviation history, so I got to perform for Chuck Yeager and Scott Crossfield. So I know you know who Chuck Yeager is. He broke the sound barrier, right? Who's Scott Crossfield? Anybody? Oh, he is the first man to go twice the speed of sound. So to play for both of them at the same time was really fun. And I can't remember the guy's name, but he was there as well. He was the first person to jump with a parachute from like the stratosphere or something crazy. So I got to perform at this event with all three of those guys there. It was such an honor just to be there and perform for them. And another thing we did down there is we had this giant July 4th parade, not parade, it was a performance where we would bring in more guest artists. Got to perform with Lee Greenwood, with, he may have been the biggest name there, but just so much fun being in this position, just where I'm just a lowly drummer, but I get to play all of these things with all of these famous people coming in to perform for us. And they're always telling us, oh, what an honor to play for you. And I'm like, oh, you don't understand. I get to play with you. This is a great experience. I did have the opportunity to deploy to the desert and live in forward operating bases for about 3 months. That was a very, very unique experience because here I was, I normally play for 10,000, 20,000, sometimes a couple of thousand people, but there was at least one concert where I'm playing rock and roll music for one guy. But it was I'm getting chills just thinking about it right now. That guy had just been sleeping in a car, doing patrols for 3 days, eating MRE, bad, cold food, and he had just come home. I say home, to the forward operating base. And he came and he chose to come and listen to me and my rock band. And he would just sit there. I remember front row, he was just sitting there smiling. And I remember just the feeling that like, oh, this guy for the first time, he's been doing all this for the first time. I remove him from this situation. And that one person was the most inspiring thing that I had probably done in my career, just knowing that guy was having a good time. And that's part of our job. So I know she talked about our job in the Air Force a lot. It's a lot of recruiting. It's a lot of messaging. We come here and we tell you fine people about the wonderful thing the Air Force can do for you. Be sure to pay your taxes. Those type of things. But then my favorite thing to do was to perform for our troops who were just tired. Just the look in his eyes, you could tell this guy was so tired. But he was there just having a good time with us. And it was, I loved it. I could talk about it for days. I'll tell one just silly story. I need to check my time because I'll just start yabbering around. So, Vice President Dick Cheney came to Robins Air Force Base to speak. The band was going to be there to play for ceremonies. They play Hail Columbia, I believe, for the Vice President. So we were there ready to go. They had a stage kind of like this for the whole 30-member ceremonial band, and they had these two really cool F-15s parked right up, right here, and the rear stabilizer, that's the little wing in the back, was just hanging right here. No big deal, we're setting up, we're just getting around it. I want to say he was a master sergeant, a higher ranked enlisted person says, "Hey, you," and he points at me. I was just a brand pretty new, just a couple years, low airman. He says, "You, get over here. It's your job to make sure no one touches or bumps into this rear stabilizer." All right, that's my job. He said, "In fact, come over here. I'm going to introduce you to the colonel in charge of all this." Like, oh, all right, let's meet the colonel. He pulls me over, and the colonel says, "Oh, you make sure no one touches that. It has we just painted it." I was like, "Oh my gosh, you know how much it costs to paint that?" I don't know. He said, $50,000. I said, "Wow, $50,000. Did you get a second estimate on that?" And he looks at me, he says, "What?" So usually when I get my car, touched up with a repair, I usually get a couple of estimates, and I go with the lowest one. And he just walked away. I don't know if that helped my career at that point, but I enjoyed it so much. That's just one of the wonderful things that happens when you're a fool like me. All right, then I got to spend time in Germany. She talked about that. There, I'll just tell a quick story, and then I'll go to the instrument. Another really unique experience there. I got to tour Russia, believe it or not, 3 times. Siberia specifically. Siberia is a big place with 2 roads that go around everywhere. So we played in Yekaterinburg, a joint concert with the Ural Region Military Band. It was out in the park. If you're familiar with Siberia, you're probably thinking that it's this wintry wonderland, cold and scary. It is during the wintertime. In the summertime, it is gorgeous. It's beautiful. We were playing this concert in the park, big open amphitheater, Russians just everywhere enjoying their day just like you and I would at a concert. And afterwards, so the Ural band played, my little 5-person brass quintet played, and then we played a little bit of music together. And afterwards, this older Russian man, he was wearing some hat. He comes up to me, and if I get emotional, just bear with me. He comes up to me, he's putting his hands all over my shoulders, and he's crying. And the only English this guy could manage was Russia, Russia, America, friends forever, Russia, America, friends forever, begging us to be friends. I'm like, I hope so. You and me? Yes. And it was just a real connection with a person. And at the time we were allies with them a little bit more than we are now, but you could tell he had gone through the Cold War, just like I did, just like we all did, and it was a scary time, and you could tell he just didn't want to do that again. And just to be able to make that connection with a person and be a friend with someone while I'm wearing the uniform, that's also what our job is in the military. You're going to have to help me if you know the Lincoln quote. It's something about, if I've made a friend out of my enemy, have I not eliminated my enemy? It's something like that. And that's kind of the job there. It's like, if we can be friends and not fight, let's do that. And to be able to go in uniform and try to make that happen and cultivate that, it was a lot of fun for 20 years. I'll probably wrap up my military talks on that. Other than I will say one thing about basic training. My wife did not enjoy basic training. I loved it. I didn't have to think about anything. I just turned my brain off for like 6.5 weeks. All I had to worry about is what they told me to do. They said stand up, I stood up. Line up in the hallway, all right, I'll line up. I don't know what's going on. Go over here. Stand at attention. All right, I'll stand at attention. I didn't have to plan. I didn't have to pay bills. I didn't have to do, well, it was a little homework. I just didn't have to do anything. It was like a vacation where I got in a little bit better shape. That's how I looked at it. Some people don't like it as much, but all right, now I'm going to do some music. You don't want to hear me keep talking. So I told you I went to Southern Mississippi and I learned how to play the steel drums. So we're going to switch gears and do a little bit of Caribbean talk and play here. I'll start with playing, and then I'll talk about the instrument a little bit. Is that all right? You've completely switched gears? No more military talk? Is that all right? We're good? All right. So what I'm about to play is a steel drum. It comes from the dual island nation of Trinidad and Tobago. And it sounds a little something like this. Do you guys like Harry Belafonte?
Yes.
Okay, good. This is my island in the sun, where my people have toiled since time begun. I may sail on many seas, where her shores will always be home to me. Oh, island in the sun, willed to me by my father's hand, all of my days I will sing and praise of your forest waters, your shining sands. As morning breaks the heaven on high, I lift my heavy load to the sky. Sun comes down with a burning glow, mingles my sweat with the earth below. Oh, island in the sun, willed to me sands. I see man at the wells, cutting cane for his family. I see man at the waterside, casting nets at the surging tide. Oh, island in the sun, willed to me by my father's hand. All of my days I will sing and praise of your forest waters, your shining sands. All of my days I will sing and praise of your forest waters, your shining sands. And my dancer. Thank you. Can you hear the instrument back there? I usually have it mic'd up, but I thought it was going to work in here, and it seems like it does. So this is a steel drum. In Trinidad, they call it a steel pan. They get a little bit offended because if you call it a drum, they think about an oil drum, and it is no longer an oil drum. It is a pan. It's something special. However, one of the early innovators and arguably the inventor of the instrument, he says, "Oh, call it a drum. It's a drum." So you call it whatever you want, steel drum or steel pan. What happened was back in, I said no more military talk. Back in 1945, right near the end of World War II, there was a U.S. naval station there. I'm going to go back in time a little bit more. Actually, scrap that. Let's go way back. Forget about World War II. Let's talk about slavery. Oh, wait, no, that's horrible too, but let's talk about it anyway. So, as slaves got moved into the Caribbean, it was a horrible, horrible thing. Not only did they have their dignity and their freedom taken, they actually took their instruments away because the slave owners said, they're going to use these instruments for communication and rise up against us. They were probably right, but also it was really cruel because it's a very musical, very dancing culture that they had pulled over here. So what happened was they said, well, you're going to take our drums away from us, so we'll find other things to play. So 100 or so years goes by and they say, well, we can play on bamboo and trees and sticks. So they started to do that. And then later through history, they turned this thing into what's called tambour bamboo. Tambour is a French-ish word meaning drum. And bamboo is a word that means bamboo. So they called it a bamboo drum, and it was big, long sticks of bamboo, because we're not talking the little pieces. We're talking big hunks of bamboo, 10 feet high. They'd use little ones too, and they would march down the streets. Now this was thankfully after slavery. They were still playing these things, but there was a kind of rift between the rich people and the poor people. And the poor people would go down and play these things, and I've been told by some of the older guys that it looked like a forest coming down the street because they would just march, and it had this really haunting sound. I wish I had something to show to you, but it was just this really hollow, it's almost like super low wind chimes if you think about it. Just and they would play, stomp these things on the ground, click them together, and they would sing songs and march down the street. Well, these are a lot of times younger individuals without so much money, and what tends to happen is they gang up a little bit, they get mad at each other, and they have sticks in their hands and they start fighting. So the rich people said, no more tambour bamboo, you can't handle it, and they took it away. So what did these young poor people do? They started playing with car parts. So this is the earlier 20th century. They started playing with car parts. They found little metal tins. They found little biscuit tins. So the thing that the butter cookies come in, that little metal thing, they would play on that. Anything they could find to make a noise, they would just start beating at it. And then someone figured out that, hey, on the bottom of this biscuit tin, it has a bunch of dents on it. And the first guy to really use that on purpose, his name was Winston Spree Simon. And he said, I can put like 3 notes on here. Boink, 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 boink. And they started playing music with that. And then around 1945, back to it, near the end of World War II, there was a naval base there. They had tons of oil, a lot of oil production on this island. And they had so many oil barrels sitting around. And a man named Ellie Manette would swim out to sea because the fence went out into the ocean. He would swim out around the fence, come back a mile or so, steal an oil drum, carry it all the way back around the fence, and he would take it home because he just knew if Winston Simon could put 3 notes on this tiny little thing, I could put a whole melody on this big oil drum. So that's what he did. He put 6 notes on the oil drum, and he won some competition. It was amazing, and someone stole it, but that's fine. He kept making them, and that's really how the instrument was born. Someone said that, wow, we can use an oil drum and just chop it open and hammer it away with hammers until it makes pretty sounds. That's a quick and dirty history of the steel drum. Trying to think, did I leave anything out? Any questions about that before we start playing more music? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I was wondering how you get the different tones.
Oh.
So if they're indented, right?
Yeah, let me do that. I'm going to set the mic down. I'm just going to talk really loud.
Okay.
So, how do I get the different notes? So what they figured out,
Oh, yeah.
what they figured out is the bigger the dent, the lower the note.
Uh-huh.
And you can see on the outside here, there's larger dents, and on the inside, there's a little bit smaller, and then teeny tiny little notes right here. And they've just over time, it's been, well, this is 1945, so how many years has that been? A lot of years later, 70 years, wow. They've just been able to clear it, turn it into a science a little bit, and really make a nice, clear, pure note out of it. And it's all hand done. There's no machine that can do this. It's a guy with a hammer. They use pneumatic hammers now to do the big part, but imagine this was just one flat piece of metal across here. They hammered it down into a bowl. And I've tried to do that before. Honestly, I don't know how they ever did it. It's impossible. And then they come up around it, and they hammer little dents back up, and then they have the notes. So you can see they've kind of scored in between. That helps with separating the notes a little bit.
So does it have a normal scale to it?
I have a fully chromatic 2.5 octaves of music. On my smaller instrument, it's almost the exact same range as an oboe. This is a little bit lower, but it has about the same number of notes. So, and it's amazing. So this is kind of a alto or tenor voice. It goes up to a soprano voice. Then, so the lower the note, the more room it takes, right?
Right.
So if you want more notes, you need more drums down low. So you go to 2 drums, and that's a little bit lower. And then you go to 3 drums, and these notes we're talking are getting this big. And then you go to bass, bring in the bass notes, and it's 6 full oil drums. It just looks like a guy standing back behind an Exxon station.
Yeah.
And each drum only has 3 notes on it. That's how big those notes are. And it is a beautiful sound. Beautiful sound. I love
How long did it take you to learn that?
Well, I'm still learning is the proper answer. But
No.
to learn it, so what happened, the way I learned it,
So where would we have middle C?
middle C.
Uh-huh.
So I see we have some musicians in the room. Are you familiar with the circle of fifths?
Yeah.
So this instrument, only this voice is built on the circle of fifths.
Okay.
So I start with middle C. Actually, yeah, middle C is right below me,
Yeah.
or right in front of me. Then it goes down to G, up to D, down, and it just goes back and forth like that.
Okay. But you just have to get used to it like on a piano.
You just
have to
learn
know where your muscle.
But this one is really logically set up, right? It's a circle of
Yeah.
fifths. The double seconds, it's on 2. It has a whole tone scale on each instrument, but it's scattered. F, G, A.
Kind of like a typewriter.
Yeah, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. Yeah, I'm just looking at it. It just zigzags
Yeah.
across, and then the other instrument is different. So it's.
You really have
You
to
just
learn
learn
that
it.
with your muscle.
Yeah, and the way I learned is I got to Southern Mississippi right when they started their first steel band, 30 years ago. I just went to the anniversary. And they bought 4 instruments, and I was there at the ground level, and
Wow.
everyone was making mistakes, so I had all the freedom to learn. And that's where I learned the best, is when I have freedom to make mistakes,
Sure.
I will learn.
Right.
And I had all the freedom in the world to make mistakes. At the end of that year, the graduate student who was playing mostly, who knew the instrument, he graduated. My professor, who was playing outside gigs with him, comes to me and says, hey, you want to play a party for $100?
Yeah.
I'm a freshman in college.
Right.
You're going to give me $100? Yes. Yeah. So,
I'll figure this out. Yeah.
so I went for it. And then, I went to that first gig playing 3 tunes, and we played about 2.5 hours on those 3 tunes, just playing them over and over again. And the next gig I knew 6 tunes, and the next gig I knew 20. And so that's just how I learned, and I love it. I fell in love with the instrument. This is what I've done. The Air Force didn't use it that much, but now that I'm done, so we had my beautiful little girl about a year before I hit 20 years. And then I never decided to be I never planned on being a stay-at-home dad, but here I am. And I play this on the side and then take care of her.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
Why did you retire? But now we know.
There you go, for her.
Yeah.
Do we have time to play one song? Okay. There we go. All right, this is Jamaica Farewell by Harry Belafonte. Just remember how this one goes. Down the way. All right.
1, 2, 3, go!
Okay. 1, 2, count it. I actually count it off again, and I'll start. One more time.
So 1, 2, 3.
Down the way where the nights are gay and the sun shines daily on the mountaintop, I took a trip on a sailing ship, and when we reached Jamaica, I made a stop. Well, I'm sad to say I'm on my way, won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. I had to leave a little girl in Kingston town. Down the market you can hear ladies cry out while on their heads they bear ackee rice, so fish are nice and the rum is fine any time of year. Well, I'm sad to say I'm on my way, won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. I had to leave a little girl in Kingston town. Sounds of laughter everywhere, and the dancing girls swaying to and fro. I must declare my heart is there, though I've been from Maine to Mexico. Well, I'm sad to say I'm on my way, won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. I had to leave a little girl in Kingston town. I had to leave a little girl in Kingston town. I had to leave a little girl in Kingston town. Thank you so much. If you want to see the instrument, come on up. I'm happy to show you. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry, I was just saying, if you want to come up and see the instrument or chat, please come up. I'll show you what's going on here. No one cares about the clarinet. I get it. I get it.
You've got a musician coming in.
Oh, I know. So I'm gonna have to start charging double.
We got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you do the chromatic scale or?
Chromatic scale. It's kind of tricky because it zigzags all across, but I'll do the best I can. This is starting from the lowest note. Oh, you see, you challenged me. All right, I'm going to start a different octave. I tried to start at the lowest, and it's just it's blowing my mind right now. We almost never play a fully chromatic scale because if you can see what's happening, if I do my hands, they would end up doing the Bugs Bunny thing. So I have to think, and I think we've all figured out the less I have to think, the better that I am. So
That sounded like you're running a scale on the piano.
yeah, it's the same. Yes.
Clarinet sounds very good.
Yeah, it was.
Wasn't it? I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
It was very good. That was wonderful.
Thank you so much.
You've got to come back and just give us a whole performance.
I think we will.
Is making music a full-time job in the military?
Making music, well, just like anything in government work, they will take a beautiful thing, they will take anything and turn it into paperwork, right? So honestly, about 10 to 20% of our job, even though it is music, it's only 10 to 20% performing. The rest of it is writing reports, doing online training, running the things, doing the finances, planning the next event. So it is having to do with the band, but honestly, only 10 to 20% of the job is actually hands-on instrument playing. The rest of it is just government work or planning for the next thing.
And is there any concern that the president might think that making music is not needed?
I'm glad you brought
The
this up.
military?
So she's not going to be able to say or emote or make any face
Yeah,
at
okay,
all because she is active duty right now. This is not a political statement, what I'm
Right,
saying.
no.
This is only a matter-of-fact thing. So with all of the cuts that may or may not need to happen, one of the things that's happening is the budget that has been pushed up through the Secretary of Defense includes a line item for musicians. That line item is currently zero. So for next year, which starts in September, they're no longer going to be funding the bands. I don't know what that means because they're not cutting the bands. They're just not going to fund the bands. I don't know what that means. So if you so desire to contact your congressman, I wouldn't complain. She can't say any of this, nor will she, because she has a duty to not have an opinion. I'm out. I can have an opinion. So I understand that it's not immediately evident that music has a place in the military. I really understand that. But having lived and seen the effect it has on our allies and enemies, I have stories to talk about where people who don't like us have been affected by our music, and it changes attitudes. It's an amazing thing, this tool of music being used as a military mission. It's a real thing, and it's being cut. And I'm sad about that, especially if she can't keep her job for the next 10 years, 8 years. But if you so desire, contact your congressman. She won't say that, I'll say it. Don't say that. Don't even smile about that. No, see? So, anyway, thanks for that question. Thank you so much. Thank you. You guys have been great. So, thank you.
This is all handmade.
This is all handmade. The only thing that was a machine, so when they sink it down, they have a pneumatic hammer, and it is a sledgehammer that just does it, but it's still lots of work. Otherwise, it's just they take a sledgehammer with a short handle and they just pound the trash out of it.
Oh, you want
Until it's a bowl.
Yeah.
And then they use a ball keen hammer to put the notes in. And then once every year, I have a guy tune it. He takes a ball keen hammer and he knows exactly where to hit it, how to hit it.
I don't want to get in front of it. Chuck.
The pressure, the angle that he pulls the metal different ways, it's amazing to watch. If you put me with a hammer on this thing, I would completely destroy it.
So the next one they make, would it be arranged just like this one?
So this is a specific instrument, a circle of fifths or a spider web lead is what they call this. So only single drums are set up like this. There's a double drum. This is a little strange because it has about the range of the two drum instrument, and that two drum instrument is called double seconds. But it has these notes. Let's see if I can figure this out. On one side, it has those notes on one side, and then it has every note in between on the left side. So together, you have all your notes. But then the tenor, the real lower instrument, only has a fully diminished 7 on each drum, and they're scattered in completely different arrangements. And then you have, like I said, the bass pans are big, full oil drums, and those notes are about that big around. And if you heard it, you would never know that this pure low note is coming from this hand. It's amazing, but yeah, it's actually a really delicate instrument. So if you watch me play. I'm barely touching it. So if I play hard, it's going to be loud. It starts to distort the sound a little bit. It got kind of a growl in there. I can use that if that's the sound I want to make, but that kind of knocks the note out of pitch a little bit, so I try not to do that.
What's the small one sound?
This is the C, the high C. Now, the original lead voice would go up to a G above that, and it has a little note in the middle. But no one plays up that high, so it's really no point. Yeah. And it goes down to the G below treble clef.
Is that the lowest one there?
Yeah, that's the lowest one. And it's a real, yeah, very, very gently.
No.
Okay, you're not going to. Okay. And you can hear, maybe, let's see if I can demonstrate it for you. You know? They actually tune those harmonics in there to color the sound. And so they're not just tuning one note on this. They're tuning the fundamental that you hear, but then they're getting up there and they're tuning these. And if they tune those wrong, they will interact with the neighboring notes, and they'll be at it. You'll hear this weird warbling. And these are all things that they figured out over the past 70 years. They've studied it. They just figured it out.
Does temperature affect it?
Yeah. So when I'm playing and I don't have shade, I had to buy my own tent because I showed up to one and I was smacking the sun, and the sun just wham was just hitting right here. For one thing, it's very shiny. and I didn't have sunglasses, but that's fine. I don't have to look at the instrument to play. So, but it just heated that up a lot, and I could hear the note was dropping in pitch, and it was getting way out of tune. And I thought, oh no, oh boy, I'm done. If I had kept playing on it or played too hard, I would have knocked it out of tune. But I took it easy, and then I got home, it cooled off, and it came back up in pitch. So yeah, temperature does affect it, but it has to be pretty hot for it to affect it much.
Fan blowing on behind.
Yeah. Oh, you'd be blowing on me. I played like, I think 4 events last week, and it's in the mid-90s, and I'm sitting out by a pool. Everybody's in the pool, and I'm playing for them while I'm sweating away. But.
We have an event here called cardio drumming.
Oh, yeah? Okay, I know what those are. You have a music therapist come in and do that? So I taught the music therapists at the University of Iowa how to play drums. So I'm sure, who knows, maybe they will. But yeah, this is just one of the many voices that they have. And I do have a set of double seconds at home, but I'm not very good at those. It's a completely different instrument, and this is the one I know the best.